It's less than 6 days before voters in the City of Charleston District 6 vote for a new council member. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down one last time with candidate Amy Brennan. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, Amy, it is so good to see you again.
So good to see you too.
I appreciate this.
I do too.
So here we are with a second update.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to get around to everybody and it's getting kind of crazy out here.
It is crazy. We're getting to the end.
Yeah, can you describe to me Amy Brennan, the candidate right now?
It's probably about as frantic as things are for you trying to catch up with everybody.
Sure.
And I think, and you and I talked about this before we went
Sure.
on, so we can clear the air
Sure.
with people. And you and I have known each other for a while.
Yes.
And what I appreciate about the way that we work through our issues is that we talk to each other.
We did.
Because you have to talk to each other if you're going to get to any kind of understanding.
Sure.
And what I've realized through this campaign, my whole life in nonprofit
Right.
management and community work,
Right.
is you have to go see people and you have to talk to people in order to understand where they're coming from. You have to listen to their needs, and that happened with us
Right.
yesterday. Sometimes people get misunderstood. Sometimes you think you understand something and you don't.
Right.
And until you just say, okay, I gotta go see the person, I gotta pick up the phone and talk to the person,
Right.
you just don't know.
And that's what I did with you.
Right, well, and we did that together, so I appreciate that.
Anytime.
We have respect for each other.
Sure.
And that's what I want to do on council, that's what I want to continue to do in community. And it's what I've been doing, knocking on, it's more than 800 doors, I don't know, I haven't been counting, but I mean just in general, looking at all the sheets and all the people that I've been talking to, which has been amazing. I love getting to know my neighbors, the neighborhoods,
Right.
listening to all the issues, people showing me pictures on their phones of their yards flooding,
Oh,
taking me in their yards so their ditches that haven't been cleaned in
Wow.
years. There's a lot of people in pain out there that feel like they're not being heard, they're not being listened to, and just having me come to their front door means a whole lot. And so that's where I get fed as a community servant, is that I want to be there for people, I want to be the person who can be there for them into the future, to listen to the issues and to help solve them. And that's been the thing that's kept me going through this campaign. Where I am, I think, in my sort of lessons learned about going through a campaign process, is that you learn a lot about people. I have the energy and the thick skin enough to deal with a lot of stuff. I'm not, you know what you're getting into, I think, when you get into a political campaign,
Sure.
even if it's your first big one. But, I think in the national platform may be setting the stage for some of this, I don't know. But there is a lot of interest, it seems, in separating us instead of pulling us together. And I appreciate your interviews, because when you talk one-on-one, everybody says the same thing. But people, leaders in the community, it seems like when you hear people talk, instead of saying, let's all pull people together because we all need to be in this together and keep moving forward in a unified front, we're citing the things that divide us. Whether it's talking about things that divide us, if it's a bridge, if it's race, if it's other demographics, if it's the color of your trash can on James Island, if it's a community border. We're all Charleston, so everything that happens and decisions that get made on council, even if it's a City of Charleston border, it affects all of us. And I'd just like to see a little more rhetoric from all sides, and people get impassioned on both sides.
Sure.
So I'm not saying one side's worse than the other. It's somehow what happens in the process. And I think if everybody just started saying, let's talk in a kind and motivational way, that everybody's doing this for the right reasons, I think everybody would be happier. The doors I knock on, there's fear, there's distrust, people want better communication, and they're thankful that I'm there willing to provide that.
And let me take you to the latest headline. This is from a local television station from Twitter. It says this: Charlestonians for Better Housing and Mayor Technoboard, that is, support 20 million bond referendum for affordable housing. Affordable housing. How close are we to this?
Well, the bond's going to be on the ballot Tuesday, so hopefully everybody's going to vote yes on that. It's a great start for us. That the next council will be voting on how that bond is spent. It'll start a trust where the council will decide on revitalizing, refurbishing, and building new affordable housing in the city of Charleston. So that'll help support the public housing and Section 8 housing, which is very vulnerable right now and needs to be renovated. It'll also help support service workers and people who need to get to their job centers who can't afford to live close to the city.
Right.
Teachers. My husband's been a teacher for 27 years. I know some of the issues that our first responders and teachers and people in that sector are facing. And, you know, of course, the service workers. We all are so glad that we're in Charleston with the amazing food and beverage, but our food and bev workers have to live so far out that they barely can afford to do the jobs that they're doing. And then we also have this aging population. So in next year, I think more than 25% of our population are going to be seniors. I talked to a woman the other day who lives in the Wagner Terrace area, and she said, my rent keeps going up. I think she was like 83 years old. And she said, how am I going to afford to still live here? And I said, well, you can't go out and get a job. They can't. So we need to look at affordable housing for our senior population who cannot just go out and get another job. They're on a very fixed income and they need help. So the Affordable Housing Trust is going to help all of those people, and we desperately need it. And 20 million is probably not enough, but it's a very good start, and I hope everybody will vote for that.
Endorsements. You said this on Facebook on October 27th, quote, I'm so honored to have the endorsements of Save James Island, Low Country Livability, and so many of you across District 6. What do those endorsements tell about you?
Well, just like all the other candidates, we filled out questionnaires,
Right.
we went to the interviews,
Right.
and those people chose who they wanted to choose. Well, Save James Island didn't have a questionnaire and interview process, they just picked candidates.
Right.
But the Low Country Livability Trust and realtors and
Right.
the chamber and
Right.
all kinds of other people go through that process. And I think if you look back at my materials that were printed before all those started, they just align exactly with what the Low Country Livability stands for and what Save James Island stands
Right.
for. It's all environmental and preserving our environment and being in favor of smart development and making sure that we're good stewards of our environment and our community. So that's why I said I was honored. I didn't have to say, yes, I'll do this. I promised to say that. It's, you know, I answered my questions truthfully and what I believe, and went to the interview and did the same thing, and they chose to endorse me.
And obviously, October 31st was a very interesting day around here. You said this on Facebook as well. You said this: Happy Halloween. Please be safe out there tonight if you're going to trick or treating. I have no tricks. Only promise the treat of a councilwoman who will vote against huge apartment complexes on James Island. Support the mayor's proposal for a James Island specific zoning plan and a moratorium on hotels downtown. Where are we with moratoriums in your mind?
Well, the citizens of James Island are the people who did the petition for the moratorium. If I were on council then, and I wasn't there and I wasn't part of the voting process, but now that I'm on this side of it and I'm seeing it all, I wish the moratorium would have been larger and encompassed more development.
Okay.
I think there was probably a response because it was when the standard was being built, the core was being proposed. So I think they went for apartments because it was such an influx of a lot of people all at once, you know, coming to an island where infrastructure is not in place to handle that amount of people. So my guess is that's the process that happened. I'm not sure why somebody didn't say, hey, let's expand the moratorium to include all development while we're at it, residential development while we're at it, while we figure this out. That's what I would have proposed, because the cluster developments that are proposed along Central Park Road right now are going to wreak havoc on that little tiny country road. It's just not ready for it. Already there have been cluster developments along Fleming that are flooding the neighborhoods in Cross Creek.
Right.
So, and I'm hearing that from all the people that I talked to back in there. So I'm not sure why that wasn't brought up for an increase in that moratorium. The moratorium on hotels, I'm all for, because I don't know that we've taken stock and looked at what we have in the name of hotels and hotel rooms on the peninsula. As soon as I know that and know that we need more hotels, then I'll be for having more hotels, but I will be for how they're constructed and that it's sustainable. I built a green building that's LEED certified building, YMCA, when I was doing that. And there's no reason that we can't require developers to have LEED standards and sustainable building standards when they build on the peninsula, because we are facing flooding and sea level rise and all kinds of things on the peninsula where we're getting surrounded by concrete. We have to watch out for the amount of grass and green spaces that we have, and we have to protect what we've got here too.
With the moratorium, do you think that most of the city council members are in bed with the developers, and that's why this moratorium is not as successful?
I don't know that answer. I think that when you look at the way that the master plan was created in 2000 and reviewed in 2010, it's very city-centric for zoning, for everything else. Right. And when it's city-centric in James Island, for example, for the moratorium that was passed there, it's all that the citizens could do to try to protect the neighborhood and the livability that they had for that time. I don't know who's supporting them or what the motivation is there. I'm not going to guess about that. That's stirring the negativity pot. I'm not going to do it. But what I do know is that when you have poor planning and all of a sudden something gets built like the Standard or like that cluster development off of Fleming, then you get people who buy into those or who live there, or even like the Longborough thing that y'all were talking about yesterday. Then the people who live there are the ones who suffer because they're our neighbors. And they didn't ask to be in a place where other people didn't want the development or didn't want the situation. So we need to have people on council who can be collaborative and who can have the tough conversations even when your heart's beating fast and it's scary and you're afraid you're not going to have a colleague anymore because you have to say something hard. You have to have those conversations. You have to get to a point where even through disagreement, you come to an agreement and you can come to some kind of collaborative answer that's the best for everybody. And then when people live in the apartment complex or the clusters, then maybe they wouldn't feel, and I don't know that they feel alienated, but when everybody's talking about the developments that we have now and that people don't want them, I mean, they're people in my district. I care about them. I want them to feel like they have quality of life as well.
And obviously, like you indicated, we've known each other for almost, I did my first interview with you for Quintin's Close Up 4 years ago.
Aww.
But let's reset it and describe Amy Brennan, the person.
Mm-hmm. Well, a long time ago when I decided to go into nonprofit management, it was because I was doing a lot of things through my church and social ministry. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to go into ministry, and I had a great woman say, why do you have to do ordained ministry? Why can't you do it just in community? And it was the greatest thing anybody ever said to me because she was right. So that's why I started doing nonprofit work. It's because you can give back to community through nonprofit work. And I was in the right place. I've been in the right place my whole life. I'll continue to do nonprofit work, whether I'm the person elected to council or not. And I just feel like my running for council was a way for me to continue to give back.
Okay.
And meeting all the people that I've met, I think that's why I'm connecting with people so much, is because I believe that. That's my end game. I mean, I've read people who said you're only doing it to benefit you or whatever. I don't think anybody on council is running for council to benefit them unless they're trying to go on to something else and they're, I don't know. But you do this work because you care about community and you want to make it a better place.
Okay.
And I think I said this in our last interview, but I got into nonprofit management because I wanted to make the world a better place. And that's why I want to do this work on city council, because I want to make Charleston a better place. And I have the experience, I have the curiosity, I have the relationships in the city and some across the state where I think I'm the right person for the job. I enjoy talking to people and building relationships and problem solving. And I think we've had people who have done a good job. I don't think any of the issue, it's hard being the challenger because it's in some ways you got to say, well, we haven't done this, I want to do this better. I think all that it means is that I'm ready for a breath of fresh air, I'm ready for some new ideas, I'm ready for us to stop kicking the can down the road on some of the things, especially on James Island in my district, and also downtown where I think we can really push forward. And I've been doing work a long time in the nonprofit sector where people said things were impossible, and I've seen it happen because you just put the right people at the table to make it go. So I'm ready to get to work on day one, and I'm excited to make it happen and to have that positive look at what politics can do in bringing a group of people together, and for everybody to feel like there's hope, not necessarily distrust or despair that we're never going to make anything happen.
Well, on a personal note, I want to apologize for what happened last night.
Me too. We're all right.
You were fine. I never had a problem with that.
I didn't either.
Yeah. But thank you for this interview.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'll interview all of you guys after the election.
Yes.
But time permits,
Maybe we'll be taking a nap.
Or vacation.
I know. Thanks, Quintin.
Thank you, Amy
Thank
Brennan.
you.
I appreciate this.
Everybody go vote.
There you go. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.